Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody for being here today. We're so honored to have some of the incredible moms in our community joining us together for this roundtable, and we're very honored to have Senator Mike Lee and his wife Sharon joining us from Utah. The members here at this table are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They are moms who have raised families, moms who care deeply about their children and their grandchildren and care about things like parental rights, our great and beautiful, wonderful Constitution, and the future of this country. I think I'm safe to say that we all believe that God had a hand in creating this nation and that this nation is worth saving. And so I'm looking forward to hearing from all of these incredible mothers. And I want to hand it over to my friend, Senator Mike Lee, who I'm looking forward to working with in Washington, D.C., to straighten things out.
Kari, when you arrive in the U.S. Senate, it will not be a moment too soon. There is a hole in the U.S. Senate in the exact shape and likeness of Kari Lake, and we look forward to having you there. Look, it's a pleasure to be with you. This is the state of my birth. I was born in Arizona, moved to Utah when I was a year old, but still have family and friends down here. And Arizona is playing such a pivotal role in this year's election. Important for the Senate majority and important also for the presidency. Sharon and I have talked a lot about this race and about the presidential race. And Sharon, why don't you start by sharing some of your thoughts about this race and open some of that conversation?
Sometimes we forget that politics is really just the business of people. And as we interact with people and we get to talk to a lot of people, all of us do, we learn things from each other. And I walk away from most of these things thinking, humans are fascinating creatures in all of their many strengths and weaknesses. But this is a conversation election, an election that we need to have conversations with the people in our lives, people that we know well and people that we might not yet know well, because we have a responsibility. And as a result of our culture and the things that matter to us, we are not the people that stay home. That's why we're here from another state. We don't stay home when we have a neighbor in need. We don't stay home when our kids go on missions. We don't stay home when there's a crisis. We are people that go out and do and talk and lift and love. And we have an obligation to those that might be intimidated by their ballots this year.
Well, let's start with, and thank you, Sharon, for that. You're absolutely right. It's going to take all of us to come together. I believe we're at a moment, a really great opportunity for America. We think we're all divided like this because if we're listening to the media, that's what they're telling us. Americans are angry with each other. I'm not seeing that. I'm all over the state. I'm in the White Mountains. I'm in Lake Havasu City. I'm in Phoenix. I'm in Show Low. I'm in, you name it. I'm in the border towns. I'm in Yuma, Tucson, all over this country and this state and this country. I actually see Americans coming together unlike I've seen in my whole lifetime. It's really a beautiful thing. And I know that as mothers, we are concerned about our children and the future we're leaving them. And so I'd love to kind of hear from you all. What is the issue that's most important to you? And where are you as you're going out to vote? Let me see a show of hands first. How many of you have already voted early? All of us. Okay, then we're going to talk today about how we can get our friends and neighbors and family members who maybe haven't voted early. We're going to take the energy we've already taken into voting early and get it out to our friends and neighbors, because we all have cell phones, I'm assuming, and we all have contacts on that cell phone, and we have people we love very much that we can reach out to and encourage to vote. We have one more day of early voting, and then we go on to election day, and we have to get everybody out. So if we can start, I don't know where to start. Should I start down here? Is it Kaylee?
Kaylee, yes.
Okay, let's start with Kaylee. Tell us a little bit about yourself and just what you think are the big concerns and maybe what we need to hear about as people who are running for office.
Absolutely. So, I'm so excited to be with this group. I'm not quite a mom yet, and all these ladies are people that I look up to and have more years and wisdom and experience than me. So I'm excited to learn from you all. But I'm a recent graduate from the University of Arizona and a fifth-generation Arizonan. So this is a place that means the world to me. And I think about it, this is a place that I would love to raise my family in and continue that legacy of staying in Arizona. But the border is important here, and we see it firsthand here that the floodgates of the world are pouring into America, and it creates danger in so many ways. And we're losing the foundations of our country from that. And so it's something that is top of mind, I think, for voters all over Arizona right now.
I agree. I agree. And I think we have to address that first. People always say, what's the number one issue? And I say the border, because the border plays into the number 2 and number 3 and number 4 issue. Number 2 being our economy. We're having to compete now with people here illegally for housing. It drives the housing prices up. Number 3, our crime and our safety. You know, we know that we're letting people in who have not been properly vetted. And I worry about my own daughter who's 21. She wants to be out and having a good time and being a 21-year-old woman. And I worry when she's just walking across a parking lot anymore because things have become less safe. And it plays into the fentanyl crisis and the homelessness and all of that. So it's a really critical issue. And I think everyone recognizes that. How about you, Lisa?
Well, first of all, I'm married with 6 children, and I helped start a charter school because I wanted to make sure that my kids got appropriate education, and so I worked through that. I am also was chairman of the Arizona State Constitutional Commemoration Committee, so really pushing the Constitution, and that because that will maintain our freedoms. And then also I've been part of Mommy Lobby AZ and President Protect Arizona Children Coalition, so protecting parental rights. Also stopping this, comprehensive sexuality education, which is destroying the youth to be able to make good, solid family units, which is essential. It's the most essential social unit to be able to have a strong country. And so, therefore, I've been busy, doing that as well. Also, I see as you talk about the economy, I have, 2 daughters. They're making enough money that they should be able to get a home, and they can't. And so that's something in regards to, well, one just got a condo, but basically it's just so expensive. And I want them to enjoy the American dream. That's what I want for my kids. And I have Revolutionary War veterans in my past, and they sacrificed so much for me to be able to enjoy these freedoms. And I kind of feel as a duty that I work to try and save the Constitution and to be able to, the rising generations, so that they can enjoy the American dream that was so graciously and lovingly given to us.
Well, I don't know anybody I love the Constitution, but Senator Mike Lee is a champion of the Constitution, and I think you're recognizing some of the same things, right?
Yes, look, the Constitution was written by wise men raised up by God unto that very purpose. Had it come forward just a few years earlier or a few years later, we wouldn't have had the same combination of unusual talent. We need to revere it. For the first 150 years of the Republic, we honored its structure. Really, since the late 1930s, we've messed up a couple of the Constitution's key structural provisions. Federalism and separation of powers. We've gone away from it, and that's led to chaos. It's led to a $35.5 trillion debt. And it's led to a federal government that knows no limits on what it spends, that knows no limits on what it regulates, and that's a problem. So that's one of the things that's calling out, one of the real ways that we can create an atmosphere in which unity can thrive and contention can be diminished, is to narrow the focus of what the federal government is about. The Founding Fathers did that for us already. We just need to recreate that. We need to follow what they set in motion.
Yep. My father was a history teacher, father of 9. We had 8 girls and 1 boy. I know. She said, I love girls. Everyone always says, did the boy turn out normal? Yes, he did. And he became a football coach in addition to teaching history, the Constitution, and government because he needed more money to help raise his growing family. And he was a really great athlete, and they said, well, if you want to make a little more money, you can, coach in addition to that. So he helped raise up some great young men as well. He got all these girls, and then he had a football team. Over the course of 35 years, he did that. And I always joked, he never went into a restaurant without someone saying, let me pick up your lunch. Let's talk about that great season we had in, whatever year it was. But we all have an impact on our community. And whether it be with just the neighbors we have next door, our friends and loved ones, our fellow members of our church. How are you reaching out to people this election season, being such an important election season, and using that influence you have?
I've actually written a lot of thoughts and emailed it to people. And then one of the people I emailed to was my mom. And everywhere she goes, I see her saying, "Hey, are you voting for Trump? No, you got to read this. My daughter wrote this. You got to read this." So that is one way. May I say that I am also a mom of two. One has graduated recently and a couple years ago, and my son is a senior in high school at a charter school, like Lisa's,
Awesome.
a different school, but this is great. But at a charter school that values virtues and Western culture, Western literature, doesn't want to decolonize our bookshelves,
Good.
and I love that so much. They are learning to value conversations, including with people that they disagree, learning to speak up for themselves and also to respectfully disagree. And that is great. I love what James T. Harris said recently. I think it's so important. I heard him say that what we want to maintain is the freedom to do that which is good. And I thought, wow, we want to maintain the freedom to do that which is good, where we have the other side that wants the freedom to do whatever is abominable and destructive. That's a huge choice.
Really big.
Yes.
Really big choice. And I think people get really caught up in the ads and the politics and the media of it. And when you really boil it down to, if you care about the Constitution, which party right now is upholding the Constitution? And which party is trying to take away our First Amendment rights? You know, and I grew up as a big fan of Ronald Reagan. He was the president of my youth, and I admire him greatly. And then I got into broadcast journalism. My whole career depended on the First Amendment. And right now I feel like the First Amendment is crumbling.
Were you born by the time Reagan was president? I didn't know.
Yes, I was. Thank you, Senator. He encouraged me to become a Republican. We grew up about an hour apart, many decades apart, but about an hour apart. He was in Illinois, and I was on the Iowa-Illinois border. But I admired him greatly for his gentle optimism, and he told us we're going to get through this. And while I miss that gentle optimism, as much as some people criticize President Trump's demeanor as a brash New Yorker, sometimes I think we need a brash New Yorker.
Yeah.
We're dealing with some tough characters out there in the world, and you understand it, being in the Senate. There's some tough characters. Sometimes you need that gentle optimism, and sometimes you need a little bit more strength. And I think that President Trump's strong demeanor is necessary in the world we're living in right now. What are your thoughts on just where things are right now?
Background, Marcia Barlow. I've worked for 25 years with what's called a pro-family, pro-life group, United Families International. We work domestically, worked with Senator Lee, and also internationally. And I think what I would like to go on the record for is the realization that this sounds trite, but it isn't at all, that marriage and family and that breakdown impacts not only everyone in Arizona, everyone in this country, but the world too. Yes, to develop in the world, they need, a strong family may not be enough, but I think it is. You add private property rights and rule of law to that, and you supercharge economic development here and internationally. And when that breaks down, virtually every social issue that we look at can be traced back to the breakdown of family, including the abortion issue, which I assume most of the women at this table care immensely about. That's driven by the lack of marriage. It just absolutely is. You will not stop abortion until you shore up marriage. So that's my focus, and thank you for all your efforts in that regard. We need you. So
I'm sure, Sharon, you have a thought on that as well, being a mother and a grandmother and realizing the beauty of all that.
I have had the opportunity to teach children with dyslexia. And the first thing that I told them was, we're going to make friends with words again. And I realized how many of us actually need to make friends with words again. Not just dyslexic students, but all of us have a little bit of a resistance to the things we hear, because there's anger in a lot of them, and there's confusion in a lot of them, and there's downright an agenda behind a lot of them. But we can make friends with words again. just like those children can. And it's something amazing because it's a powerful gift that we're given. And I think we can use our words differently. So I know all of us have some friends somewhere that just are not political creatures, and they tell you as much. And they are busy doing the things they love, and we're busy doing the things we love. So how is it that you have a political conversation with someone who says, I'm not a political creature? And one of the things that has helped with me is if you have read something, if you've spoken about something, if you believe something, and if you love someone, you're a political creature. Because that's what we do every single day. And those are the things that we're protecting. So the next step is, what is it about your ballot that I can help you with? Because people look at ballots and they're not like us. They don't look at it with comfort and with excitement and with pride that we get the chance to vote. They look at it somewhat terrified because they aren't exposed to the same things we are. So we start having a conversation and we connect the things that we know are most important. Protecting children, making sure parental rights are in place, that there's freedom of religion. And now we can connect those ideas to a person. But if you bring up the idea first and the person second, that's the easy part. That's actually the easiest part because people naturally agree with the things that weigh heavily on conscience, whether they're political creatures or not. And so you decide easily the things that you're willing to sacrifice and let most other things go, and the things you're not. And most people agree on far more than we give them credit for. People agree on the very things we're talking about here. But our job is to connect those principles to a person. And when we do that, all of the ads will go away, all of the negativity will go away, and they will remember one conversation they had with someone who lives by them, who works next to them, who cares about them, and has some of the same things in their heart that they do in theirs. That will matter. It's been proven 100 times over. Those conversations matter more than most conversations when it comes to voting, and especially when it's a two-way conversation. Most ads, I'm sorry to mention this because ads are a big part of campaigning.
Yeah, this is not to say
I
that
know
Kari Lake's
that
ads
they're
were
great,
not very
but-
well
but we have
designed and
to-
spent.
We have to remember that
Very
many political ads are just a springboard for the conversations we need to have. They're not the end, they're the beginning. And we can address some of the things those ads address in a much more personal way. And now you have somebody that's not intimidated by a ballot, but that is honored to have a ballot. And ballots are messy. They're messy. They have people on them and parties on them, and they have amendments on them, and they have all kinds of people running for positions we're not even sure about. But you know those issues. You know what the ballot looks like. You've sat down with it, and other people can sit down with it too, especially with our help. So that's what I encourage you to do in the next 5 days. It's actually a fantastic process, one that I have had a privilege to help people make friends, not just with words, but with their ballots.
So in other words, I think what you're saying is, especially within the context of the Latter-day Saint audience, you've got people in this room, or most likely you are the women in your respective wards and stakes, to whom people go saying, who should I vote for this position, and for this position? And these are the people who can help demystify the down ballot. You can demystify that. You can get them to vote, including some people who might not otherwise do it.
Exactly. And I think people need help. We take advantage, we forget. We forget that it can be a little nerve-wracking because it's a big responsibility and we know it and we're comfortable in it, but not everybody is. But we can help them with that. And that's really how we get out the vote. We give them permission to not be sure about everything and to have someone that can help them with that. And in our state, I think you have a degree of this here where you can really tell people why it is that they can vote for Republicans and remind them the differences between the two in one sentence. It's a pretty simple description. Republicans believe that individuals are incredibly powerful in solving their own problems, and that when we let them solve their own problems, they do a really good job of it. And the other party, Democrats, believe that institutions and governments should solve their problems. And quite frankly, they're not very good at it. But people are nervous about their problems, and so they start to have trust in things that don't work. And there's reasons that they trust those things. They doubt themselves. And if we give people confidence, they'll be a lot closer to the Republican side of things than the Democrat side of things. And that doesn't even mention a person's name yet. That just gives them permission to vote for those ideas. And then it's a little easier to sort out the R's and the D's.
That'll get up to Kari Lake and Donald Trump.
And once they do that, now we
Wait,
have.
I love that Senator Mike Lee is sitting here with a table full of moms, and he's just trying to get a word in.
Oh gosh, he gets lots of words in. I promise you that.
On the floor of the Senate, you can go on and on, but in a group full of moms, you're going to be limited, Senator.
I have 5 sisters. That was taught from a young age.
He learned it. I love, Marsha, what you said about some of the big issues, and there's a cultural shift that's happened in our country. There's no doubt about it. The family has been taken away in many ways. In some ways, the government has been the blame for the teardown of the family. You look at in some of our inner cities, when the government decides to send manufacturing overseas, and this has been happening for decades now, and dad loses his job, that sends a shockwave through a family. Let's all think about our families. If our husband lost their job, that would send a shockwave through our family. And this happened in mass in the 70s and 80s as they were sending factories overseas. And it really decimated, in my belief, the inner city communities and those families that actually were doing pretty well. Every family is different, but they were doing pretty well. And then we watched as more and more jobs went away, and drugs were brought in and introduced, and the border and cartels were empowered. And it has been a disaster for our families. You look at the border just right now, the border's a disaster for our families. This fentanyl is falling into the hands of, even when you're doing the best job ever with your kiddos, all of a sudden you hear about someone's child, 16-year-old, who took a pill. They thought it was a Xanax or something like that, and they're gone. We lose our legacy and our future, and we don't have to live this way. We need to secure that border. And we have so much more in common than we have than our differences. And I really want to get to DC and work with people. I think when we get President Trump in office and we get some good fighters who are going to fight for our states in office, I believe more people are going to want to come to the table and say, how can we work to solve these problems? And that's what I want to do. I'm hoping that you're not believing the $100 million in ads I've had dropped on me, 40 million of which have been attacking me because I'm pro-life and I want to save as many babies as possible. And I say that knowing that it may not be possible at this moment to save every baby as much as I wish we could. We have to start where we are, and I'm working slowly at that. And this fact and this figure that came to me the other day, it was sent to me, 60% of women who have an abortion wish they wouldn't have, but they would have, if they would have known there was financial or emotional help out there, they would have not chosen that. That tells me we're failing as a society. So I want to go to the Senate, make sure we're pushing legislation to encourage families, to bolster families. We have a situation right now. I don't think in your families we got a situation with a population crisis, but I'm from a big family. I want to see more big families. Right now our birth rate is something like 1.5. When I was a young woman just coming up, it was 2.5. When I was a little kid, it was much higher. We are going to be facing a population crisis if we do not encourage family growth, and I want to see that we're doing that. And I think we can make that happen. So let me talk to you. We've got Janet right here. Are you talking to other voters that are out there and trying to encourage people in your community to get out and vote?
Absolutely.
And what's being success? What have you
Absolutely.
found is successful?
And I agree with Mrs. Lee, Representative Lee's wife. I forgot your name. I'm so sorry.
Sharon.
I apologize, but I agree with you, and I think it's lack of education, and that's another reason why people are so fearful. And so you find what is their reason why they don't want to talk about it, and then you give them the answers, or you help them find their own answers. But one of the big things that I've been using, and is important to me, is a judge. So you're going to have to be one of those people that have to vote if President Trump ends up appointing a judge, then we're going to need the Senate, and we're going to need a really strong Senate to make sure we get a good judge in place. Right. I am a mom of 7 daughters, and I have 28 grandchildren. My oldest granddaughter is just now engaged, and I am so excited that we're going to have a positive outcome, right? But I'm not, I'm actually very concerned about what is going to happen if it doesn't, if we do get the outcome that we're concerned about. I'm not concerned about the money that's being dropped on you, because there's enough of us that are out there fighting. And let me tell you, I text, I make phone calls, and I spend a lot of time doing this. And this Monday, the day before the election, 44 years ago, is when President Reagan was put into office. And the reason why I know that is because my oldest daughter was born that day. And I wanted to go out and vote, but instead I had this beautiful baby girl that is now has several children of her own. And there's a legacy that is happening right now with President Trump and the likes of you. And together, you guys are going to bring what President Reagan had given us.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful for what you've done, and what you're doing. And I'm not worried about the ads, because there's enough of us that are really working hard. And we really appreciate what you do.
Thank you. And thank you for raising such a beautiful family.
Thank you.
You know, I'm lucky in that I have been in people's homes for 30 years now in Arizona. And so when you know someone for 30 years and then you get an attack ad that says something just totally the antithesis of what you are, your friends tend to go, well, that's not who she is. And so I have the benefit of that, because I've been in your homes, and I thank you for welcoming me all these years, and I thank you for voting for me now. And so we are going to protect our families. I really believe our brightest days are ahead. Maybe that's the Reagan optimism that I saw when I was a kid that makes me believe that. But I think we're going to have some difficult times, but I also think that our brightest days are ahead for your 7 beautiful girls and the 28
grandchildren.
28 grandkids. Let's talk to April, who was born in November, by the way. And a happy birthday early. And what's on your mind, and how do you think that we can better reach people, and what do we need to do to make sure that everyone's getting out there and voting?
So I'm on the Central Arizona Water Conservation District Board of Directors, and I'm up for re-election. I have the honor of sharing the same face of the ballot that you have. So
Are you on page 1, 2, 3, or 4?
page 1.
Oh, good.
Interestingly enough, usually we're after the judges, but they bumped us up. I guess they decided that water is important.
Water's very important.
I believe that the family unit is the smallest form of government, and we really need to support keeping our families together. My last remaining child, who was not registered to vote, I finally talked him into it, and I grabbed him, I took him into my office, and I said, "Okay, let's register you to vote."
Moms have a way of getting things done, don't we?
And so now all 8 of them are voting, and thank goodness, all 8 of them are conservative. They had to listen to me as they were growing up, complain about why things don't work one way, and how important freedom is, and how much we need to fight for that. And so I think a little bit of luck, but that was ingrained into their souls, and so they're out there with me fighting.
Great. Well, thank you for fighting and raising such great patriotic children. That's really important. You know, they always say you can judge a parent by how their grandkids turn out. You know, so hopefully we're going to get conservative, strong, patriotic grandkids as well.
I just found out number 6 is on the way.
That's awesome.
And Senator Lee, I'm the inverse of you. I've got 5 brothers.
And you turned out to be a tough, awesome woman. Sometimes when you have
And
the
an
opposite
engineer.
sex in the house,
Yeah.
An engineer. That's great. Well, let's finish off. Not last but not least with Pam, and thank you for being here. We need everyone's help here to wake up our neighbors and just encourage them to vote and not be intimidated by this ballot. If you had some success with talking to your friends and neighbors about what's on the ballot, and if so, impart on us, your success and what we should be doing.
Well, I've been in this fight for 15 years. I started the Tea Party movement in Arizona 15 years ago. And now I work with over 90 conservative leaders across the state. That's how I know Lisa. She's in that group. But my whole feeling is to give hope to people. And I have a channel on Telegram. It's called Good News. And I need to put more posts on there. At least it might be on that one. I'm not sure. But but I try to put out good things that are happening and encourage people and just say, just today I was talking with a neighbor and I said, "Did you vote yet?" And he said, "Yes, I did. I think my neighbors are afraid of me, so they know they have to." But I told him, I said, we were talking about what was going on, and he's always watching the news and he's so fearful. And I said, no, there's good things happening and we need to tap into that and focus on that. And I honestly believe that if we go back to what our nation was founded on, in the schools, they were taught from the Bible and every subject. And I know that a lot of people would disagree with that. So I would say at least go back to good values and people loving each other and working together and serving each other. So that's where I come from.
I don't feel like I'm that old, but when I was a kid in a public school, I'm a product of public school, we used to sing Christmas songs in music class, and some of them were Frosty the Snowman and some of them were Silent Night. And it was just, it's the season that is important, and they weren't trying to convert anybody, but I think we need to respect our culture as a Judeo-Christian nation, and we need to respect that Constitution. That God, I just truly believe that this is the nation that God chose, and he placed his hand on the shoulders of our founding fathers, and he placed his hand on the pioneers who struggled to come across this country. It wasn't luck, it was by divine intervention. And I don't know about you, I'm not willing to give this up. I feel that I don't want to sound dire, but I feel this is the last election. If we don't get it right this time, I don't know how we can handle 4 more years of this craziness that we've had to endure. And so I think Lisa agrees. She's saying,
well, and I was going to say, because I'm also running for office for the state house, so I've knocked on thousands of doors and I've talked to voters and encouraging them, and they're like, well, we can't really do anything or whatever. I mean, it's just, it's above and beyond us. And I tell them, I said, our founding fathers, George Washington, went up against the richest nation, the strongest navy, and the greatest army with a ragtag army, no navy, and no money, and they won. And it was because I do believe God helps out. There's many instances where God helped out, but also because I said, but they had to fight for it. And, God's not just going to say, whoop, everything's okay. We have to do our part. And so we need to fight for it. And so when I talk to them, they're like, okay. And, I said, and many of these things that we're going to have to make decisions on is, are we going to choose for freedom or for money? Because a lot of times people say, like, well, this might go away, money-wise. And I said, but which one do you want? And people are saying freedom. And so that's exciting to hear.
right. Well, what do you say we let Senator Lee and Sharon have the last word here? Why don't we have Sharon speak, and then we'll let the man at the table, who we've allowed into the women's group tonight. But Sharon, if you want to kind of close this out.
There are a lot of things that are rooted in fear, and that happens when people get together and they realize that sometimes the problems feel a lot bigger than their abilities. And we remember something that's eternally true, and that is you don't need everyone. You don't even always need most. You just need enough. And we are part of that enough. You and I and our families and those that we know, we're part of that enough, and it's significant enough. But as a result of the fact that the odds are against us, they've been from the very beginning, we do have to do our part. And those of us that come from Western states need to keep in mind something that I believe deeply in. We really are the future of this country. We have so many of the things that were really present at the beginning of it. We have a lot that's yet to be discovered. We have a lot of challenges that we don't even know we can meet yet. We have the ability to turn something that's barren and arid into something that's beautiful and grows and produces and sustains life. A lot of urban centers in this country have been given a good chance, but we really are the hope of tomorrow. And it's because we understand something. This was never supposed to be easy, because the things that matter most rarely are. It is good, and it's worth our time and our effort. And keep this one thing in mind. Disagreement is an interesting thing, but agreement is kind of boring. And we were never supposed to agree on everything. In fact, we would be less if we did. Remember something, it's all we can sometimes fight for if we're disagreeing with someone that we love and care about. And that is, I would much rather think about the fact that agreement by force is far worse than disagreement by choice. And we can all vote for disagreement by choice.
Senator Mike Lee.
This was once part of the state of Deseret, as we wanted it to be. Didn't end up that way, and in many respects, we're all better off that it didn't, because we've got more representation, we've got more senators covering more states. When my ancestors on my paternal side came to Arizona, they were told by Brigham Young, go find some place that's so barren and desolate, no one will want to live there, no one will want to take it over. So they ended up in St. John's in Apache County, and some great people came from St. John's. It's a place that was settled by people like my ancestors and like many of yours who came here in search of religious freedom. That's something we've got to defend to the bitter end. And we have to remember the real contrasts in this race, one of which really is religious freedom. Kari Lake's opponent, Ruben Gallego, and Donald Trump's opponent, Kamala Harris, have both taken overt acts, supported legislation, at times introduced legislation that is a clear and present threat to religious liberty. Just one of many examples we could point to. We can look to Senator Kamala Harris's introduction of a bill called the Do No Harm Act. It's got an Orwellian name. It's the most ironically named bill I've seen in a long time. It would literally gut the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. For religious minorities like us, and let's face it, anyone who is religious in this country is a religious minority. We're all heretics now. And the First Amendment is there to protect heretics. The Religious Freedom Restoration Act is there to protect the First Amendment. If we lose that, we're in a lot of trouble. The stakes for us as Americans, as Christians, as Latter-day Saints have never been higher. Fortunately, we've got two very good choices on the ballot this year in Arizona to fix what's wrong with Washington. We've got Kari Lake. She's uniquely good, uniquely qualified. I love campaigning with her. And I desperately need her in the Senate, so please send her to me. And working together with President Trump, we can get there. Look, I know that friends and neighbors, when they're casting their votes, the people who you're going to be working to persuade between now and Tuesday, November 5th, they sometimes have their doubts. Remind them what's at stake, especially for their religious freedom. When they take that into account, there is no other choice than Kari Lake, and there is no other choice than Donald Trump.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, everybody who's watching. I just want to remind all of you at home that I feel honored to be here at this moment. As tough as it is, I know I'm not the only one who wakes up at 3 a.m. worried about the future. That's very natural. But that God put us here at this moment. He thinks so highly of us that he put us here at this very special moment in history. And I think we are the people to help save this country. And I'm honored to be here. I'm looking forward to 5 more days of working as hard as I can, and I will continue if you elect me to be your United States Senator and join the greats like Senator Mike Lee. I will go to Washington, D.C. and make all of you proud. You'll never have to say, oh boy, what is she up to? I'm going to go there and make you proud, make your families proud, make our state proud, and do the right thing to protect our Constitution. Thank you so much. Go out and work hard for us the next 5 days. Let's work for our country. God bless you all, and God bless America. Thank you.